My parents demanded that I give my house for $110K to my spoiled brother, who took all of my parents' attention. I'm a long-time lurker, but this is my first time posting. I really need some advice and I guess a place to vent a bit. My life has been a roller coaster these past few years, and my relationship with my family is more strained than ever. I hope you can bear with me as I lay it all out. I'm 37 years old, single, and I guess you could say I'm the black sheep of the family. My younger brother Mike is 32 and has 4 kids. Mike's wife, my sister-in-law Sil, and I have never gotten along. It's not that I haven't tried, but she always seems to have something against me. It's made family gatherings awkward for years. To make matters worse, my parents have always favored Mike. Growing up, it was clear that he was the golden child. He got the better toys, more attention, and when we were older, he received more financial support. It created a significant divide between us, and I've always felt like I had to fend for myself. Then the pandemic hit, and things got even worse. I lost my job and couldn't afford to continue renting my condo. I ended up selling almost everything I owned and bought a camper to live in. It was a tough decision, but I didn't see any other option. I asked my family if I could park it on their property, but they demanded an outrageous rent that I simply couldn't afford. They offered no real help, just more obstacles. I finally caught a break when I found a new job in a neighboring city. It was a great opportunity and paid well enough that I could start saving again. After a lot of hard work and frugality, I managed to buy a small house for $110,000. I poured nearly all my savings into the down payment, but it was worth it to have a place of my own again. Feeling proud of my achievement, I posted about my new home on social media. That's when the real trouble began. My family, who had shown little interest in my struggles, suddenly wanted to visit and see my new place. They showed up uninvited, claiming they just wanted to congratulate me, but their true intentions became clear soon enough. Mike and CIL were the first to start making demands. They wanted me to move back into the camper so that they could live in my house with their kids. Mike said it was only fair since they had more pressing needs with their growing family. When I refused, things got heated. My parents sided with Mike, as usual, and accused me of being selfish. I recorded the whole confrontation on my phone. Mike was yelling, Sil was crying, and my parents were trying to guilt-trip me into giving up my house. It was a nightmare. I stood my ground, though. I told them that I had worked too hard to get back on my feet and that I wasn't going to give up my home. After that, I shared my side of the story on social media. The support I received from friends and extended family was overwhelming. Many of them had no idea how badly I'd been treated over the years. They condemned my parents and Mike's behavior, which seemed to embarrass them into silence for a while. But the drama didn't end there. A few days later, Mike and CL tried to break into my house while I was at work. Luckily, my neighbor saw them and called the police. When I got home, the police were there and Mike and CIL were being questioned. The police confirmed that I had every right to keep them out of my home. That incident led to a further breakdown in our already strained relationship. Mike and CIL tried to fabricate a rental agreement, claiming that I had agreed to let them live there. It didn't work, and I made sure to keep all my legal documents in order to prove my ownership. The fallout was intense. Extended family members who had always been neutral or unaware started taking sides. Surprisingly, many sided with me, condemning my parents' favoritism and Mike's entitlement. It felt good to have that support, even though it didn't come from my immediate family. Eventually, the situation with Mike and CL worsened to the point of no return. CL cheated on Mike, and they ended up divorcing. Mike, now desperate and without a place to stay, reached out to me. Despite everything, I couldn't turn my back on him completely. I offered him the camper for his kids, so they wouldn't be homeless. Mike accepted, and he started living in the camper while his kids stayed with our parents. It was a tough situation, but it seemed like a step towards some sort of reconciliation. Meanwhile, my parents began to realize the extent of their mistakes. They reached out to me, apologizing and asking for a chance to make things right. They've started going to counseling to address their behavior and are trying to rebuild their relationship with me. It's a slow process, and trust isn't easily restored, but at least they're making an effort. I maintain some distance, but try to be open to their attempts at mending our family ties. As for Sil, she's out of the picture completely. I have a restraining order against her after she tried to cause more trouble. Mike and I are on speaking terms, but it's a fragile peace. I'm focusing on enjoying my new life, building better relationships with the relatives who supported me, and being there for my nieces and nephews. I never thought things would turn out this way, but here I am, finding some semblance of peace and stability. It's been a long road, and there's still work to be done, but I finally feel like I'm on the right path. Thanks for reading, and any advice or support would be greatly appreciated. The fallout from the initial confrontation with my family continued to reverberate through our lives. My parents, who had always been Mike's staunch supporters, found themselves at a loss when they realized how their favoritism had alienated me. My father, a man of few words but strong opinions, started to question his past decisions. My mother, always the peacekeeper, began to see the cracks in her efforts to maintain family harmony at any cost. My extended family, many of whom had only heard one side of the story for years, were now exposed to the reality of my situation. The messages of support and encouragement I received were heartwarming. Cousins, aunts, and uncles reached out, some to apologize for not understanding my struggles, others to offer their help in any way they could. Mike's life, meanwhile, was falling apart. The divorce hit him hard, not just emotionally, but financially as well. He had been the primary breadwinner, and now he was faced with child support payments on top of his own living expenses. The kids stayed with our parents most of the time, and Mike lived in the camper I had once called home. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel some sympathy for Mike. He had always been my parents' favorite, but he was still my brother. I knew he was struggling and I wanted to help, but I also knew I had to protect myself from being dragged back into the toxic dynamics of our family. One weekend, I decided to invite Mike over to my house for a talk. It was a difficult conversation, but one that needed to happen. I told him how I felt, how his and our parents' actions had affected me over the years. I also expressed my willingness to help him get back on his feet, but with clear boundaries. Mike was surprisingly receptive. He admitted that he had never realized the extent of the favoritism or how much it had hurt me. We talked for hours, and by the end of it, I felt a small glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could start to mend our relationship. Meanwhile, my parents' attempts to reconcile were slow but steady. They attended counseling sessions and made a genuine effort to understand my perspective. They apologized for their past behavior and promised to do better. It wasn't easy for me to trust them again, but I appreciated the effort they were making. Ciel, on the other hand, was completely out of the picture. After the restraining order, she kept her distance, and I was grateful for that. The peace and quiet were a welcome change from the constant drama she had brought into our lives. As the months went by, I focused on building a better life for myself. I took pride in my new home, decorating it to reflect my tastes and personality. I started to reconnect with old friends and made new ones in my neighborhood. My job was going well, and I even got a promotion, which brought more stability and a sense of accomplishment. I also made an effort to be there for my nieces and nephews. They were innocent in all this, and I wanted them to know they had an uncle who cared about them. I took them on outings, helped with their homework, and tried to be a positive presence in their lives. My relationship with Mike continued to improve. He found a new job and started to get back on his feet. We didn't see each other as often as we used to, but when we did, it was usually a pleasant experience. The old animosities were still there, but they were slowly being overshadowed by our efforts to move forward. One day, out of the blue, my parents called and invited me over for dinner. It was the first time they had done so since the big fallout. I was hesitant, but decided to go. When I arrived, I was surprised to see that they had prepared all my favorite dishes. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot to me. During dinner, we talked about everything and nothing. It was awkward at first, but gradually the conversation flowed more naturally. They told me about their counseling sessions and the things they had learned about themselves and their behavior. They acknowledged the hurt they had caused and expressed their commitment to making amends. For the first time in years, I felt like we were making real progress as a family. It wasn't perfect, and there were still many issues to work through, but it was a start. I left that evening feeling hopeful and more at peace than I had in a long time. As the seasons changed, so did the dynamics within our family. The air of tension that had once been palpable began to dissipate, replaced by cautious optimism and a tentative rebuilding of trust. My relationship with Mike continued to improve incrementally, and my parents seemed genuinely committed to their promise of change. One significant turning point came during the holiday season. My parents extended an invitation to both Mike and me to spend Christmas at their house. In previous years, such gatherings had been fraught with tension and unspoken grievances, but this time, there was a noticeable effort to make things different. I arrived at my parents' house on Christmas Eve, feeling a mix of apprehension and hope. The house was decorated festively, and the smell of freshly baked cookies filled the air. Mike was already there with his kids, who ran up to greet me excitedly. Their genuine happiness at seeing me warmed my heart. The evening started with the usual holiday activities, decorating the tree, playing games, and enjoying a hearty meal together. It felt almost surreal to experience such a peaceful family gathering after everything that had happened. My parents were attentive and kind, making sure to include everyone in the conversations and activities. As we sat around the fireplace, my father cleared his throat and addressed the family. He spoke about the importance of unity and love, acknowledging the mistakes that had been made and the hurt that had been caused. He apologized to both Mike and me, tears welling up in his eyes. My mother echoed his sentiments, expressing her deep regret and commitment to making things right. It was a heartfelt moment, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. Mike and I shared a knowing look, understanding that while the wounds of the past couldn't be erased, we could work towards healing and building a better future. After Christmas, my parents continued their efforts to improve our relationship. They invited me over for dinner regularly, and we began to share more about our lives and experiences. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments of tension and misunderstanding, but the overall trajectory was positive. Mike's life also started to stabilize. He found a more stable job, and his relationship with his kids improved as he spent more quality time with them. The camper, once a symbol of my struggles, had become a temporary haven for him and a reminder of the importance of family support. One particularly poignant moment came when Mike confided in me about his feelings of failure and regret. He admitted that he had always felt immense pressure to live up to our parents' expectations and had often taken out his frustrations on me. It was a raw and honest conversation, and I appreciated his vulnerability. I shared my own experiences and feelings, and for the first time, we truly understood each other's perspectives. It was a breakthrough in our relationship, and it laid the foundation for a more genuine and supportive brotherhood. Meanwhile, my parents continued their counseling sessions and made a concerted effort to change their behavior. They acknowledged their past mistakes and worked on being more supportive and equitable in their treatment of both Mike and me. It wasn't a quick fix, but their sincerity was evident, and it made a significant difference. As the months went by, our family gatherings became more frequent and less strained. Birthdays, holidays, and simple Sunday dinners were opportunities to reconnect and strengthen our bonds. My parents' house, once a place of tension and favoritism, had become a space of healing and reconciliation. My nieces and nephews also benefited from the improved family dynamics. They thrived in the positive atmosphere and appreciated the renewed connections with their grandparents, uncle, and father. I made a point to be involved in their lives, attending their school events and supporting them in their activities. One summer evening, as we all gathered for a barbecue in my parents' backyard, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. The laughter of the children, the easy conversation among the adults, and the sense of togetherness were all things I had once thought impossible. It was during this barbecue that my father pulled me aside and handed me a small, wrapped gift. Puzzled, I opened it to find a set of keys. He smiled and explained that he and my mother had decided to give me their old vacation cabin in the mountains. They wanted me to have a place to escape to, a sanctuary where I could find peace and solitude whenever I needed it. I was deeply touched by the gesture. The cabin had always been a special place for our family, and their decision to give it to me was a testament to their commitment to making amends. I thanked them sincerely, feeling a renewed sense of belonging and appreciation. As we all sat around the fire pit that evening, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories, I realized that despite the tumultuous journey, we had found a way to come together as a family. The road to healing was long and often challenging, but it was worth every step. The cabin in the mountains quickly became my retreat, a place where I could unwind and reflect on everything that had transpired. I spent many weekends there, often inviting Mike and his kids to join me. It became a cherished spot for bonding and creating new memories. Mike and I continued to work on our relationship, gradually rebuilding the trust that had been shattered by years of favoritism and misunderstandings. We talked openly about our childhood, our parents, and our own struggles. These conversations, though sometimes painful, were crucial in our journey towards reconciliation. My parents, too, continued to make strides in their behavior. They attended family therapy sessions where they learned to communicate more effectively and address the underlying issues that had caused so much pain. They became more mindful of their actions and made a conscious effort to support both Mike and me equally. One day, while I was at the cabin, my mother called me with some surprising news. She and my father had decided to sell their house and move to a smaller place closer to me and Mike. They wanted to be more involved in our lives and help us raise the kids in a healthier family environment. I was taken aback but touched by their decision. It was a significant step towards mending our fractured family. The sale of their house went smoothly, and they found a cozy home not far from mine. This move brought us even closer, both geographically and emotionally. We began to see each other more regularly, and our family gatherings became a cherished tradition. Mike's kids thrived in this new environment. They were happier and more confident, knowing they had the support of their extended family. They excelled in school and extracurricular activities, and I made it a point to attend their events and cheer them on. Despite the progress, there were still moments of tension and old wounds that resurfaced. One such incident occurred when SIL, who had been mostly absent, tried to re-enter the picture. She claimed she wanted to be involved in her kids' lives again, but her past behavior made everyone wary. Mike was particularly torn. He wanted to believe that CL had changed, but he also didn't want to expose his kids to more instability. We had a long conversation about it, and I advised him to proceed with caution. Ultimately, he decided to allow supervised visits, but only under strict conditions. These visits were challenging. CIL tried to manipulate the situation to her advantage, but Mike stood firm. He prioritized the well-being of his kids and refused to let her disrupt the progress we had made. It was a difficult period, but it also strengthened Mike's resolve and commitment to being a better father. As time went on, our family continued to heal. The trust that had been shattered was slowly rebuilt, and the bonds between us grew stronger. My parents, who had once been the source of so much pain, became advocates for healthy family dynamics. They supported both Mike and me, and their love and dedication were evident in everything they did. The turning point came when my father, who had always been a man of few words, gave a heartfelt speech during a family dinner. He spoke about the importance of family, the mistakes he had made, and his commitment to being a better father and grandfather. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, and it felt like a new chapter in our family history. I continued to find solace in the cabin, often retreating there to recharge and reflect. It became a place of peace and tranquility, a reminder of how far we had come. I spent countless hours hiking in the surrounding woods, enjoying the beauty of nature and the sense of freedom it provided. One summer, I decided to organize a family reunion at the cabin. It was an ambitious plan, but I wanted to bring everyone together in a place that had become so special to me. I invited extended family members, some of whom I hadn't seen in years, and asked Mike and my parents to help with the preparations. The reunion was a resounding success. The cabin, with its picturesque setting and cozy interior, provided the perfect backdrop for reconnecting and creating new memories. We spent the days hiking, fishing, and playing games, and the evenings were filled with laughter and storytelling around the fire pit. For the first time in a long while, I felt a deep sense of contentment and belonging. The struggles and hardships of the past seemed like distant memories, replaced by the warmth and love of a united family. It wasn't perfect, and there were still challenges to face, but we had come a long way. As the sun set on the final day of the reunion, I stood on the porch of the cabin, looking out over the serene landscape. Mike joined me, and we stood in silence for a moment, taking it all in. He turned to me and expressed his gratitude for everything. I smiled and replied, feeling a surge of emotion. We understood that we were family, supporting each other no matter what. The years that followed were marked by continued growth and healing. My relationship with my parents and Mike remained strong, and our family gatherings became cherished traditions. The cabin in the mountains, once a symbol of solitude, had transformed into a place of unity and joy. Mike's children thrived, each finding their own path and achieving remarkable success. His eldest daughter, Emily, now a college graduate, pursued a career in environmental science, driven by a passion to protect the natural world she had grown to love during our visits to the cabin. His second child, a talented musician, received a scholarship to a prestigious music school. The younger two were still in high school, but their futures looked equally bright. My parents, enjoying their retirement, became active members of the community, volunteering their time and sharing their experiences with others. They had transformed from a source of pain to a source of wisdom and support, not just for our family, but for many others. Mike's relationship with his new partner flourished. They got married in a small, intimate ceremony at the cabin, surrounded by close family and friends. It was a beautiful day, filled with love and happiness, and it marked a new chapter in Mike's life. His new wife was a wonderful person who embraced the family with open arms, and together they created a loving and nurturing environment for the kids. As for me, I continued to grow both personally and professionally. My career progressed steadily, and I found fulfillment in mentoring younger colleagues and helping them navigate their paths. The sense of purpose and accomplishment I felt was a far cry from the struggles I had faced during the pandemic. One day, as I was preparing to head to the cabin for a weekend getaway, I received a phone call that would change everything. It was Mike, and he sounded excited. Mike had received a job offer in another state. It was a great opportunity, and he and the kids were seriously considering it. The news took some time to sink in. The thought of Mike and his family moving away was bittersweet. I was happy for him, but the idea of them being so far away was difficult to process. The conversation continued with Mike explaining his reasons and the potential benefits for his family. He reassured me that the cabin would still be a gathering place and that we could visit each other often. The next few months were filled with preparations for their move. There were farewell parties, packing, and many heartfelt conversations. The kids were excited about the new adventure, but there were also tears as they said goodbye to their friends and the familiar surroundings. On their last night in town, we gathered at the cabin for one final family dinner. It was a bittersweet evening, filled with laughter, reminiscing, and the promise of new beginnings. As we sat around the fire pit, Mike made a heartfelt toast about family, unity, and the journey ahead. As the evening came to a close, I found myself sitting on the porch of the cabin, reflecting on everything that had transpired. Mike joined me, and we sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the serenity of the night. Mike expressed his gratitude for everything, acknowledging the support and love that had helped him through tough times. I reassured him that we were family, and no matter the distance, we would always be there for each other. As we sat there, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had led us to a place of healing and unity, and I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together as a family. In the end, it wasn't just about the house, the camper, or even the cabin. It was about the relationships we had rebuilt, the love we had rediscovered, and the strength we had found in each other. It was about the journey of healing and the realization that, despite everything, we were stronger together. Thank you for reading my story. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that family is worth fighting for. And no matter how difficult the journey may be, the destination is always worth it. Life continued to unfold with its unique blend of challenges and joys. The bond within our family grew stronger with each passing year, and the cabin remained a cherished retreat where we gathered to celebrate milestones and create lasting memories. Mike's children thrived, each finding their own path and achieving remarkable success. His eldest daughter, Emily, now a college graduate, pursued a career in environmental science, driven by a passion to protect the natural world she had grown to love during our visits to the cabin. His second child, a talented musician, received a scholarship to a prestigious music school. The younger two were still in high school, but their futures looked equally bright. My parents, enjoying their retirement, became active members of the community, volunteering their time and sharing their experiences with others. They had transformed from a source of pain to a source of wisdom and support, not just for our family, but for many others. Mike's relationship with his new partner flourished. They got married in a small, intimate ceremony at the cabin, surrounded by close family and friends. It was a beautiful day, filled with love and happiness, and it marked a new chapter in Mike's life. His new wife was a wonderful person who embraced the family with open arms, and together they created a loving and nurturing environment for the kids. As for me, I continued to grow both personally and professionally. My career progressed steadily, and I found fulfillment in mentoring younger colleagues and helping them navigate their paths. The sense of purpose and accomplishment I felt was a far cry from the struggles I had faced during the pandemic. One day, as I was preparing to head to the cabin for a weekend getaway, I received a phone call that would change everything. It was Mike, and he sounded excited. Mike had received a job offer in another state. It was a great opportunity, and he and the kids were seriously considering it. The news took some time to sink in. The thought of Mike and his family moving away was bittersweet. I was happy for him, but the idea of them being so far away was difficult to process. The conversation continued with Mike explaining his reasons and the potential benefits for his family. He reassured me that the cabin would still be a gathering place and that we could visit each other often. The next few months were filled with preparations for their move. There were farewell parties, packing, and many heartfelt conversations. The kids were excited about the new adventure, but there were also tears as they said goodbye to their friends and the familiar surroundings. On their last night in town, we gathered at the cabin for one final family dinner. It was a bittersweet evening filled with laughter, reminiscing, and the promise of new beginnings. As we sat around the fire pit, Mike made a heartfelt toast about family, unity, and the journey ahead. As the evening came to a close, I found myself sitting on the porch of the cabin reflecting on everything that had transpired. Mike joined me and we sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the serenity of the night.